What's the most horrifying thing you've seen in the middle of the night? Man, I saw something once in the woods. I have heard about ball lightning a lot, but part of me is skeptical. I think there's something else that also can do this that's not ball lightning. Maybe paranormal, maybe not. In the woods I was alone with a fire, just with my thoughts. And I look up in the dead silence, like I started to get sort of freaked out. It was really quiet. And I saw 6 blue lights. They were about the size of basketballs. They looked like hikers with flashlights far in the distance, and that's what I thought they were because it could explain the silence. But as I kept looking, I could see how far they were based off of being in front of or behind trees. Just eerily silent, and they were floating about 3 feet off the ground just in between the trees. I watched them for about 30 minutes, it was a while, and I was fucking terrified. They were not far away. About 20 to 30 feet. I was even thinking about ball lightning due to seeing every single person to ever exist saying that on every single thread ever that is like this. I don't think it was ball lightning. It wasn't hiker flashlights, because it was dead silent and right next to me. And they went out one by one, as if they were lights. But it took quite a while of staring for them all to burn out. And then I was even more scared. I just sat there frozen, too terrified to get wood. It seriously took me 3 or 4 hours to work up the courage to walk back to my car because that's about 3 miles I had to go. Terrifying, dude. One night when we were in the 5th grade, my sister and I were hanging out in my bed with the lights out before we went to sleep in our separate rooms. We would do this sometimes and goof around / chat after we were supposed to be asleep. There was a parking lot with street lights about 20 feet from my windows, and it cast quite a bit of light on my wall every night. Never thought anything of it until this night. As we were lying in bed chatting, one of us noticed that the silhouette of a man's head was suddenly prominent against the wall. The best way I can describe the visual is when you see old bits where they have a sheet hanging in front of a light and do silly things with shadows, except this was just a shadow cast on my wall from a man looking into my bedroom window. Obviously, we were freaked the fuck out and both crept into the corner of the bed under the covers. The shadow stayed there for what felt like forever. We eventually tried to calm ourselves down and convinced each other that it was just our stepdad trying to mess with us. So we ran out of the room to see what was up, and there he was, just sitting in the living room. It wasn't him outside. He would have had to run around the house in a split second to make it to the living room. We told him what was happening, and he came to the room to see. The shadow was gone. He thought we were trying to prank him with our story before he saw how scared we were. Never figured out who was outside my window that night, but it still freaks me out just to think about it. This happened when I was maybe 12-13ish. It was recently enough for cell phones, but they were bricks. I grew up surrounded mostly by farmland in a rural area. Not far from the suburbs and the nearest city, but far enough that traffic was pretty sparse and foot traffic was basically non-existent. We could see our neighbors' houses on either side, maybe 1/4 mile down the street in each direction, but the nearest house behind was around a mile or more through pretty dense woods. Nobody lived across the street for maybe half mile or more in either direction. Now that you have a feeling for the setting, onto the story. My parents and sister went to eat dinner in town one night, and I stayed home. Our living room was all windows facing out at the back, and since we didn't exactly have neighbors out there, we didn't close the curtains. I was sitting on the couch watching TV in the living room, looked outside, and saw someone walking through the backyard. He was walking across the property parallel to the street and stopped about dead center of the yard and just looked at the house. The lights were off, but the TV was on, so he could very likely see me seeing him. He just stood there. After what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds, I jumped up, grabbed the phone, and booked it to my parents' bedroom, also the location of the gun safe. As I was opening the safe, I called my mom and told her what was up. My dad grabbed the phone from her, told me to stay in the bedroom, load the 12 gauge, and wait for them to call back. He told me that if I heard a person and it wasn't them yelling, telling me they were home, to shoot. They were maybe 5 minutes from home and would call when they were in the driveway. They got home, swept the whole backyard with the headlights when they pulled in, and nobody was to be seen. I, of course, never found out who it was or what they were doing, but they didn't belong where they were. That experience scared the living shit out of me then and probably still would now. This spring, down in San Felipe, BC, I and some family members rented out a mansion for the weekend to party. After a long night of partying, everyone besides me blacked out. The first night, it was just me up while everyone was asleep. Keep in mind this was around 3:30 a.m., I was just getting ready for bed. I was sleeping downstairs on the first living room couch. I had a view where I could see upstairs. My phone died, so I had to count sheep to fall asleep. Once falling asleep, I felt an uncomfortable vibe going on, like I was getting stared down. I open my eyes, and I see a shadow in the dark looking down at me. I look slightly down from the fear, and it goes away. I woke up the next morning telling everyone what I saw. No one believed me. Later that day I was making my way into the garage to get a beer. I felt someone walking with me but didn't pay much attention. I was looking down at my phone. Thinking it was one of my cousins, I hear the bathroom door shut on me. I grabbed 2 beers, one for me and one for my relative. I go in to see who it was, and nobody was there. Quickly run up the stairs to ask who it was. Nobody has been downstairs besides me. The second night I was freaked out, and I asked someone to crash in the living room with me. Sure enough, my cousin slept across from me. We were talking all night, chatting. A photo frame that was on the coffee table flipped over as if someone did it with force. I and my cousin were freaked and decided to sleep upstairs. Morning comes, and we discuss this at breakfast. My cousin-in-law brings up if anyone has been in his room that he was sleeping in last night. We were all scared because we realized shit wasn't right. We all heard footsteps and doors close. Later that day I met a worker for the gated community we were staying at named Manuel. I asked Manuel if he knew anything about the house we were staying in. He mentioned that a couple months prior to us getting there, a group of teens ran out of that house one day earlier and left behind a Ouija board with a candle and all sorts of satanic stuff. I instantly freak out, grab my stuff, and leave. The community is called El Dorado Ranch, San Felipe, BC. When I first came to Georgia, my girlfriend at the time and I wanted some snacks. So, we decided around like 12 or 1 in the morning to drive to the store. Here are some small details just to set the scene. My GF used to have this 90-something Lexus S300 that was lowered a bit. We lived in a rural wooded area that is about 4 to 5 miles away from the nearest small town, but there is a little country store about 3 or 4 miles down the road that was open 24/7 because it was a small truck stop. But when I say they served some bomb-ass loaded fries, I mean what I say. They were so good, I would drive like 25 minutes to go there when I moved to another town. Anyway, I'm getting off track. So, we decided late at night to grab some grub. That night was crazy foggy, vision was down to about 5 feet, and it was so dark that it was almost like someone took matte black paint and covered our rearview mirror. As we're driving down this dark, foggy country road, we notice a silhouette in the fog. We only noticed it because one of the neighbors had a street light in their yard to keep away the wildlife. As we got closer, we noticed this silhouette was about 4, maybe 5, feet tall. We thought it was a person walking, but it was totally Seuss. But we slowed down because they were in the middle of the road. As we got closer, we noticed that it wasn't a person at all, and once we got close enough to verify what it was, this big-ass bird opened up its wings and flapped once and was fucking out of there. It was so intense you could hear the whoosh like out of the Jeepers Creepers movie. Needless to say, we booked it out of that place. I was tent camping in North Carolina, just outside of Smoky Mountain National Park. It was about 4 a.m., I was up too early because I wanted to see the sun rise and had woken too soon, so I was just sitting in my chair in the dark outside my tent relaxing. My campsite was on a saddle between 3 mountains with a river flowing in the valley below. So it's super quiet and peaceful. Really a still moment and dark as all hell, no moon, and the sky was cloudy, so no stars either. Suddenly from down in the valley below my sight I hear this blood-curdling scream, like the sound of a woman being murdered. I freeze in my chair. The sound hit that primal place in my brain where the monkey ancestor resided. The sound told me I was prey and its creator was predator. Then the scream happened again. This time it echoed up across the mountains and through my sight. It sounded like a woman screaming for her dear life. It was deep and high-pitched all at once. My fight or flight response was in full control. I could see nothing to fight, and other than my flimsy tent, I had nowhere to flee. It shrieked a third time. This time I could more easily place where it was coming from. Down by the river, probably across it and a bit to the right. I stayed frozen in my chair, waiting to hear it again. By this point I was able to think a bit more clearly, and I had realized I was hearing the mating cry of a female panther. This happened in 1991. I think they were officially extinct in the area at that point. They definitely are now, but I definitely heard it. It was not a bobcat, I've heard those before. This was much larger and louder. Will-o'-the-wisps. If you don't know what they are very rare phosphorescent balls of light that float and hover above swampy or marshy areas. They are poorly understood, but the atmospheric conditions have to be nearly perfect for them to occur. They are spoken of in travelers' tales as ghost or corpse lights. I've read legends of weary travelers lured into bogs by them, never to be seen again. I went camping on a hot and muggy evening in the woods in New Hampshire with a few friends. We were up on a small mountain that overlooked the huge expanse of woods surrounding it. A light fog hung over the swampy areas below us, and at some point in the night one of us noticed a light that looked like a flashlight about 100 or so feet away. The main reason for concern is that we were on private property owned by a family member, and there was nothing for miles in the direction of the light. We watched as it danced about for a bit and then slowly rose higher and higher until it was probably 50 feet above the ground, where it winked out. This happened probably 25 more times. Some of them had a greenish tint, some resembled a magical flame, and some split into two. It was a surreal experience. I tried explaining that I was certain they were the legendary will-o'-the-wisp, but no one believed me. They were convinced it was headlights despite no road for miles. The following morning I explored the area where we saw them, and sure enough, there was a swampy, boggy marsh right there. I'm certain it was them. I work in animal research, and today a colleague mentioned that a new primate facility would be coming to our area. I've always been interested in understanding the process, even though I wouldn't want to do it long term. After I got home, I took a nap that turned into about 2.5 hours of sleep until I awoke in sleep paralysis. The bathroom attached to my bedroom had the door about 80% shut and was totally dark, as there is no window in there. As I lay there unable to move, my right eye was open enough to see the bathroom door, which I became convinced had several large primates behind it. In a frantic haze, I decided I had to get out but couldn't move. All I could do was watch what I think were very mild hallucinations or possibly just the heightened suggestibility of the state I was in. Furry, hunched figures shuffling behind the door, smaller primates crawling around the vanity lights, and the occasional fingers around the door's edge. This sleep paralysis thing has happened to me before, but usually it is just confusing and frustrating. This is the first time it was terrifying. I lived in a pretty quiet neighborhood in Edinburgh, and I'm a night owl. One night I heard a girl screaming. It sounded like it was coming from a few streets away. I had my window open, so I got up to get a better listen. She was screaming, "Somebody help me." And then I heard this popping sound. No screaming afterwards. I couldn't even remotely pinpoint where it came from. In hindsight, maybe I should have phoned the police anyway, even if all I could give them was I heard a girl screaming a few streets away, and I have no idea where. I just figured at the time that there would have been actual witnesses since it was loud and in a heavily residential area. No way nobody closer wouldn't have seen or heard it. I checked the local news for a few days afterwards because I wondered if she had been shot. A girl being shot to death in Edinburgh would have made the front page. We have lots of crime just like any other city, but crimes like that are rare. There was nothing, though. Maybe she lived but got sexually assaulted. Rapes are less likely to get into the news since, unfortunately, they are too common. If I hear something like that again, I will ring the police for sure. Maybe the girl was drunk, maybe it was just shenanigans, but she did sound genuinely terrified and like she was fleeing from an attacker. Definitely the most sinister thing I've heard late at night. I was in my bathroom taking a massive shit, and afterwards I went to wash my hands and go back to sleep. That's when it happened. This shit brings chills to me. I'm standing in front of the sink, and I go to lower my head and lean forward a good bit to wash my hands. As I did this, in my periphery, I could see my reflection not lowering its head or leaning, and it seemed the more I lowered my head and leaned forward, the more the features of the face began to blur, and the more a smile seemed to grow on the reflection. But it wasn't my smile, wasn't my mouth, wasn't my teeth. All of that was abnormally large and vibrant in color. This happened over the course of 2 seconds, and when my eye snapped back to the mirror, my reflection was back to normal again. I instantly got extremely cold and extremely paranoid. Instantly. Not over the course of a few seconds of processing what I just saw, but instantly. As if something that was not my body was causing it. I left the bathroom and felt a very odd urge to go back in and specifically look in the mirror again. That was one of 2 paranormal experiences at the place. The house burned down a year later. I was camping at a primitive campsite with a family member about 9 years ago. We went during the week, and upon entering the area, the person checking us in informed us we were the only people in the primitive section that night, which is about 4 miles away from the other non-primitive camping areas and any form of civilization. There was only one road to get in and out, so we would see anyone headed our way. My family member fell asleep quickly, but I had gotten a weird feeling as the night got darker. No cars had driven on the road by us, so I don't believe any humans were around. I could hear something crunching in the brush about 30 yards away but hoped it was a deer, as they are common in the area. As I was trying to be rational, Telling myself there are no large predators besides coyotes in the area, something let out a terrifying scream/roar like I've never heard before or since. It shook me to my core and wasn't close to the sounds of a coyote, raccoon, bear, or even a human. My family member woke up in a commotion, and we heard something running away heavily in the brush. We grabbed the essentials and sprinted to the car and drove around until morning. I have a story for this. So when I was about 6 to 7 years old, I shared a bedroom with my older sister, because usually I was scared to sleep alone, and my parents usually slept in our living room down the hall from our room and past the kitchen. Well, this particular night she was at a friend's house staying the night, so I was alone. I always kept my light on my side table right next to the bed. Well, I got up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, which was right across the hall, and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A hairy man-like figure, but it didn't have a man's face, just a man's body with fur. The face of this thing was flat with sharp teeth and an underbite with the teeth sticking out of its bottom lip, pointed ears, and yellow cat-like eyes. I've never felt like this in my entire life, unable to move or scream, just frozen in fear. I remember the monster was sitting cross-legged under the side table right under my night light, and it grabbed me and laid me belly down on its lap. Then all I remember is a super sharp pain on my lower back, and that's all. I woke up in my bed, I'd what time it was, and I checked outside for some reason. I thought at the time it might have been an alien lol, and I didn't see anything out there. I was half asleep, and I thought, oh well, just a dream. Well, the next day I didn't tell anyone, but I was complaining to my mom that my back hurt, and she looked at my back and said, "What is that on your back? Who bit you?" I looked in the mirror, and I had a bloody scab on my back shaped like someone, or something, bit me. I told my mom and my family, but my mom is the only person that ever believed me. Everyone thought I was just a stupid kid, but I know what I saw. I'm 26 years old, and I'll never forget that thing. I don't know what or why it came to me, and sometimes, honestly, it scares me it'll come back. So this happened a few years back. My neighbor, let's call him Darren, owns some property next to where my family and I live. He wanted to do this little camping party and invited my brother and me along. So Darren, 2 of his friends, and my brother and I went camping about 1/4 of a mile from where we live on Darren's property. We had a pretty good time, no drugs and very little alcohol were involved. Cutting a long story short, we decided to go on a midnight stroll through the woods. By midnight I mean it was about 2 in the morning. Full moon. We hike up the mountainside and drop back down onto a trail that leads to our campsite. As we're walking back, we hear some snapping branches in the woods next to us. Now my brother and I, and one of the friends, are familiar with the nightly sounds of the forest, so we don't think much of it. A squirrel in the woods can sound like a big-ass cougar. Sound does weird shit when it's bouncing off of trees. So we disregard the sound and keep on walking. Now, for the sake of humor, I want you to picture this. Darren's leading the charge now, and he's in nothing but pajama pants, loose slip-on shoes, a giant bathrobe, an empty bottle of whiskey. He literally brought an empty bottle of whiskey, I still have no idea why, and a massive shotgun hand cannon. So this thing has a laser sight on it, and when we heard another branch snap next to us, he let out this little war cry and waved the laser sight into the woods. Immediately something not 10 feet from us, and huge, starts stomping away from us, fast and loud as hell. We all noticed this thing sounded like a person, only 2 footfalls could be heard. Darren, my brother, and I try to play it off as a joke, like maybe it was Darren's dad out spying on us. We were all in our late teens, and it wasn't out of the question really for him. But we were all a little on edge after that. My brother decided to start watching our back as we kept making our way back to the camp, and Darren and I were now leading the charge together. His other 2 friends were scared shitless at this point and just wanted to go home. So, it's a full moon, something stomping around in the woods near us, and we're getting to this really open clearing. As we get about maybe 50 feet away, this huge shadow steps onto the trail. This thing, I swear to all fuck, is 12 to 13 feet tall, jet black, and it's standing on 2 legs. This thing was humanoid. It just strolls across the clearing in 1 step, which was about 15 feet wide, and hops up onto the hillside and out of sight. We all freeze, no one is daring to breathe, and my brother is asking, "What the fuck, dudes?" Darren finally asks me if I saw what he saw, and I give him a nod. The other 2 guys are absolutely losing their minds, quietly, at this point. And I can see in Darren's face if he's sure the gun he has can actually stop this thing. We just told my brother we saw something, and that we need to leave. We end up making our way to the clearing, stopping for a second to see if we can spot this thing. Darren and I spot a particularly large tree stump on the hillside above us and just move on. As we start walking away, We were almost back to camp at this point, and Darren pulls me away and tells me he wants to double check the clearing. That tree stump we thought we saw was totally gone. At that point we actually started to panic and really fucking hightailed it out of there. That meant the thing we saw walked up there, sat down, and watched us for a good 10 minutes before leaving. It's kind of lame, but we never saw that thing again. There have been times weird shit has happened around the area we live that could be attributed to this, but it'd be a stretch. Like pine cones or sticks being thrown at us or whatnot. But nothing concrete. I've had people tell me it was a bear, but that's impossible. Its legs were too long, it didn't have a snout, it had massively long arms, and we did end up finding footprints. They were these huge Bigfoot-esque footprints, but they had huge claw marks at the end of the toes. I'm not labeling this as Bigfoot or anything of the like, I'm just telling you what we saw. One of the guys won't even come back to hang out with us anymore, and Darren was a brother to him. Not seen per se, but heard. I was staffing summer camp, meaning sleeping in a tent all month. It was extremely hot one night, and I was not sleeping well at all. I tossed and turned for about 30 minutes before checking my phone. It was about 3 o'clock at night. Then, I heard what sounded like footprints walking up the trail the staff tents were positioned on, and I figured that it was a staffer heading to the bathroom. But the footsteps then began to walk around my tent. I was quite confused and went to wake up my tent buddy, to no avail. The footsteps then returned back to in front of my tent and then just stopped as if someone was just standing at the entrance to the tent. Now, I have no clue if my mind was playing tricks on me, but I was freaked the fuck out. After waiting about 10 minutes, I grabbed the brightest flashlight I had, as well as my clothes for the next day, and practically sprinted out of my tent straight to the bathrooms, where I proceeded to shower for the next 3 hours until wake up. Why I left my tent when I was certain something was waiting outside of it, I have no clue. All I know is I was fucking scared and that shower was the best shower of my life. I woke up at 3 to 4 a.m. with my younger brother standing over me looking down at me. He looked like a shadow, but you could still see the curves of his nose, ears, etc., like he was 3D. His back was to a night light he insisted on keeping plugged in every night, so it might have made sense that he looked like a silhouette. I was totally freaked out, obviously because my brother was staring at me in the middle of the night. So I quietly said, "Insert brother's name here." This MF raises his hand and is holding a kitchen knife. I scream and shut my eyes, waiting to be stabbed. I was probably screaming for 5-ish seconds, felt like forever, and when I opened my eyes, he was gone. I never heard footsteps or anything. My dad rushes into my room and asks why I'm screaming. I told him what happened, but here's the problem. My younger brother sleeps in a loft bed in our room. He was in the loft bed when my dad got into the room. This loft bed has several loose bolts, so whenever you touch it, let alone climb the ladder, you can hear it across the house, and I nor anyone else heard anything that sounded like it. And all the knives were downstairs in the kitchen knife block. Nothing like this has happened again. Yes, my dad remembers it, so it couldn't have been a dream. Was it a night terror? Am I haunted by my living younger brother's ghost? A couple of years ago my partner and I decided to go camping for a weekend in Uwharrie National Forest. I tend to get a little apprehensive going to the boonies as a gay couple, but we brought our dogs, 2 pit bull rescues, so I figured most likely no one would mess with us if it came down to, "Hey, why are you 2 dudes sharing a tent?" questions and whatnot. As luck would have it, when we arrived at the campsite, no one else was there. We found the perfect area to set up our tent, a little clearing with the vast expanse of national forest out to our left. We got everything all set up and went for a nice hike to wear out the pups. By the time we got back to our campsite, it was nearly dark, so we cooked some dinner and spent the remainder of the evening drinking a few beers and chatting by the fire. I had noticed that the dogs were particularly attuned to the darkness of the woods around us, but I figured it was a new experience for them with tons of smells and noises, so I wasn't at all concerned. The buzz also didn't hurt. I think we ended up going to bed at around midnight or so. After finally falling asleep, I wake up to both of the dogs growling at the door of the tent. Buzzed and drowsy, I listen as best I can and hear some shuffling around and snapping twigs. Figuring it was a raccoon or a possum checking for any leftover food bits, I tell the dogs to shut up and go back to sleep. This happens at least 3 more times, wake up to dogs' menacing growls, hear noises outside, and go back to sleep. The next time I awake, it is my boyfriend urgently shaking me out of my slumber. Angry and still a bit drunk, I croak out a pissy what. When the blurriness clears and I'm finally able to focus in the dark, I see his huge eyes and a finger pressed to his lips as he hisses, "Shh, listen." A few moments pass, and then I hear it, to the left of the tent in the woods, an ungodly wailing moan that starts low and crescendos into a piercing shriek. My blood runs cold, and I notice that the dogs are dead silent at this point, just staring in the dark. Different scenarios start racing through my brain as I try to suss out logically what the noise could be. I'm a biologist, and I've spent a good amount of my career doing fieldwork, so I've come across some scary noises in the dark before, but never anything like this. No deer, bobcat, or owl could make that sound. The moan is repeated about 3 times, and to my best judgment it sounds like it's on our left, moving ahead of us in the forest. After a few moments of silence, I muster up the courage to unzip the tent door and peek out into the woods. I see nothing, and after some whisper fighting in the dark, we come to a mutual decision to GTFO right then. Thankfully we did not have to hike into our campsite, so the car is close by. After a bit of hesitation, we unzip the tent and drag the dogs to the relative safety of the car. We break down our site in record time and shove all of the supplies in the back. The adrenaline is fully pumping as we jump in the front seats to jet, and fuck, the car won't start. The battery is dead, just the clicking of the alternator as the adrenaline wears off and reality sets in. We sit there for a time trying to figure out our next course of action. After some more whisper fighting, we decide to go out into the dark and search the other campsites, hoping someone may have hiked in and happened to have some jumper cables or a portable charger. We lock the dogs in the car, stupid, maybe, but I'm concerned for their well-being, and set out into the woods where we just heard the unexplainable and inhuman wailing, lit only by the dim glow of our cell phones. I'm a very rational person and tend to believe that the simplest and most obvious explanation tends to be the most correct one, but during that whole walk I was absolutely petrified, just waiting to be snatched out of the dark. We finally stumble across a guy camping who, thankfully, has jumper cables and is happy to help us. As he's hooking the cables to my battery in as normal a voice as possible, I ask him if he's heard anything strange in the woods that night, but he says something along the lines of nothing out of the ordinary. After a bit of charging, the car starts, and he wishes my brother and me farewell as we hightail it the fuck out of there. To this day I do not have a logical explanation for what that noise was. The best I can come up with is that Uwharrie is famously known for its Bigfoot sightings, and that a local may have been out in the woods fucking around and trying to scare campers. I wish I could recreate the noise, but thinking about it now is still chilling. Last year I did some reading up on skinwalkers, and thank God I didn't know anything about them prior to that experience because I probably would have died of fright. Some backstory: I used to live a block away from work and spent a lot of time in the office late night, early morning. I became friendly with the overnight security guard since I was one of the only people in and out at those hours. This didn't happen to me. This happened during the UN a few years ago in NYC. One of the security guards worked at a different building some nights and would go for a run during break around 2 to 3 a.m. Well, one night he happened to be running by a consulate of a country the US isn't too friendly with. Security stopped him and started asking for ID, where he worked, what he was doing out at night running by the consulate, and so on. He finally got them to drop it and continue on his run. The strange part happened after he got back and was in the break room. Someone from this consulate showed up to this office building saying they were from HR and were looking for so-and-so. The other security guard at the desk got this consulate person to leave somehow since their story didn't add up. Anyways, the guy telling me this story had video of the consulate employee, HR. Cargo pants, a black t-shirt, and a military haircut. The consulate employee entered through the parking garage and cleared the blind spots like some spy shit. Overall very strange. Also, the floor I work on is haunted. I don't believe in anything paranormal, but I refuse to be in the office from 3 a.m. to 4:30 a.m. All the night shift people talk about it like it's nothing. The first time I experienced this, it was about 3:30 a.m., and I was just wrapping up some code while listening to music, headphones on. Something felt off, like hairs on the back of my neck standing up apparently for no reason. I took my headphones off to hear if anyone was there and heard a chair rocking back and forth steadily. Slowly peeked over my cubicle to see if anyone else was in this late. No one was there, no movement of any kind. The central air appeared to be off, so it couldn't be the wind, but the chair rocking noise continued. I practically ran to the elevators and didn't come back until morning. I was taking a walk on a bush trail near where I live. It goes quite far away from the road and is super isolated. I was on the phone to my friend. I pass no one as I'm walking but one person. A woman who looked like she was in her late 50s walked towards me. As she approached, she had crazy, disheveled hair and a large gauze on her cheek. She wasn't wearing walking clothes but jeans, flip-flops, and a t-shirt saying "Choose Joy" covered in dirt. She was also dragging a rubber-head sledgehammer next to her. As she walked past we locked eyes and said hello, and I mustered a smile hoping that will ease her killer rage. LOL, I literally thought I was going to get randomly killed then and there. I told my friend to track my location, and she notified me that after about 10 kilometers more, it was a dead end, so I had to turn back and go in the direction the woman was going. I absolutely legged it. The weirdest part is that there was only one exit from which I came originally. I hadn't walked that much past this person, but I never caught up with her on my panic run back. Legit, it was like she just disappeared. Still breaks my mind, lol. It wasn't what we saw but what we heard at night and what we saw the next day. My family had moved up top to a holler near where my stepdad's family owned a lot of land and lived down below. It wasn't my first holler, and I used to love running through the woods as a kid. Loved how it makes you feel. The rule was to stay in hearing distance of my mom, which I really never listened to, but I was good at finding my way back home. This place gave you really off feelings. Even my cousins felt it when they came up to visit and we went exploring the woods together. We found a weird thing we thought at the time was a grave while we were exploring. A bunch of stones piled up in a mound. I stopped exploring and running in the woods pretty quickly after we were there a few weeks. It felt like I was being watched, and I'd get that feeling in my gut and end up running home. It didn't just mess with me either. We started hearing weird shit outside our house at night that had my mom freaked out enough that she ended up calling my stepdad's family in the middle of the night to come up with flashlights and help figure out what was moving around outside our house. They couldn't find anything and told her it was probably deer and left. The next day we go out, and the tree line right next to our house and some in our yard next to our house are just fur scattered everywhere. Dead rabbits torn to pieces and scattered all over the place with their eyes all gone. We moved a couple months after that, and I never went back to that place and don't ever plan to. My husband and I were on vacation in Virginia. We left the amusement park late and were trying to get back to the hotel. The hotel was not in the tourist area to save money, so we got lost on the way back. We turned onto a brick/cobblestone road, thinking it was in the Williamsburg reenactment area, and then we would know where we were. This was before cell phones and GPS. As we drove slowly, the road gradually narrowed, and we had the old Oldsmobile behemoth. We started thinking it was an access road not meant for real vehicles, but it just wouldn't end. We drove for about 2 miles and saw nothing at all. Finally, the husband stops the car, turns off the lights, and rolls down the windows. That's when we realized there was nothing. No lights anywhere. The trees were sparse enough we should be able to see something. Then I started muttering, "Oh my God." My husband starts freaking out. I said, "Listen." He said he didn't hear anything. That was the point. We heard nothing. Summer in VA, insects abound. We didn't even hear crickets. It was absolutely dead silent. We don't believe in ghosts or witches or anything like that, but that silence freaked us the hell out. He said he was turning the car around. The problem was, there was a slope on either side, and it was very narrow at that point. It took forever to get the car around, and we were both frantic the car would get stuck. We did get turned around, and after what seemed like an eternity, we found the real road again. The next day we retraced our route in the daylight. Couldn't find the road, and we searched for hours and knew we were looking in the right place. Never found it, and we still talk about that 20 years later. I'm a mail carrier. My mail route has an apartment building that I very much dislike delivering mail to. Even in the daytime, the building's hallways are really dark because they are windowless and have dim lights with shitty automatic motion sensors that never work properly. It's always quiet, too. Too quiet, I mean, you get this eerie feeling in there. As a result, I always feel creeped out in there and want to get out as quickly as possible. Now, the building has a specific apartment with no name or number on its door. When I open the apartment's mail hatch, I can see that there's a whole pile of ads and leaflets that have been lying there for God knows how long, and the apartment is always dark and quiet, no signs of life, nothing. There has never been any mail to deliver to the apartment in question, so I have always just brushed it off as being vacant at the moment. However, one day I decided to put some promotional leaflets through the apartment's mail hatch. I had a big amount of mail to carry and wanted to get rid of the thick and heavy leaflets. Yeah, not a good excuse, but whatever, I wanted to get rid of some extra weight. As I'm opening the hatch, I hear a child's voice in the apartment, a young boy. When I look through the hatch, it's still completely dark in there, and the whole pile of mail on the floor is still just lying there. Strange, I thought. If someone had moved in there or returned to their apartment, you would figure that they'd take care of the shit ton of mail on the floor and not just live in complete darkness. When I put the leaflets through the hatch, the voice in the apartment got audibly angrier and started yelling, "Who is there? Who put this here? Who put this here?" Through the door. I, of course, immediately panicked and bolted away without answering to the voice. I haven't given the ghost apartment any junk mail since, and to this day, there have been zero signs of life in the apartment except for the weird boy voice that scared the shit out of me. The experience just makes no logical sense to me, and it certainly hasn't influenced my opinion about the apartment building for the better. I hate being in that building. If you design apartment buildings and make their hallways long, dark, and windowless, from the bottom of my heart, fuck you. I deliver mail in the daytime, and even then, I can't see shit. I was biking to a friend's house with a six-pack on the handlebars, riding parallel to the railroad tracks, and I saw these three figures approaching the street, appearing to one across the tracks, so I slowed my cadence to allow them to pass in front of me. Instead, they came running at me, and I put down the bike to avoid being pushed off of it. They attacked me and started ripping at my shirt and rummaging through my pockets. I was face down in the dirt and saw a small red dot on the ground in front of me and optimistically hoped it was just a laser pointer and not a gun sight. They demanded money, and I assured them I only had the $10 bill in my pocket, nothing more. They were hitting me in the head, and when they got off and ran back in the direction they came from, to a car, they fired 3 shots into the air. Turns out it was a gun that they'd been pointing at me. I was so shaken by the experience, I'm shaking even writing this, and when I arrived at my friend's house, still had the beer, lol, they asked if I wanted to call the police, but I declined because there was no way I could provide a description of the attackers. It was dark, and they were 3 young black guys, so how does that help? I stayed the night and waited until afternoon to leave. I don't believe in the paranormal. As a kid I was terrified. I love horror movies and stuff now, though. Even though they used to disturb the hell out of me. I am desensitized to a lot of things these days, but there is one that always freaks me out. I am sure the majority have heard of sleep paralysis. I was around 15 to 16, I think. I had woken up one time where I couldn't move my body. My bedroom was very small, so it just took a dart of the eyes to look around the room practically. I had seen a black figure in the corner of my room, no notable features, just a plain black figure. I eventually went back to sleep even though I was shit scared. That wasn't the bad one, though. The one that scared me the most was the last time I experienced sleep paralysis. I had woken up yet again some months later and couldn't move my body, not my arms or legs, absolutely nothing. I could just about open my eyes enough to look around. I had felt something on my chest, just a weird feeling, not heavy or light, just a feeling. I had pointed my eyes towards my chest and tried to look down. I shit you not, I swear I saw some little black figure chilling on my fucking chest, a bit like the picture you saw in the wiki link I had put up above. I am not sure of the features of whatever the hell was on me, but it was something. I tried to cry and scream out, but I couldn't. The most I could do was just close my eyes really tight, and that's all I remember, honestly. Aside from those experiences. Nothing really. That's pretty much it in the world of paranormal. There could be real ghosts/demons, but I very highly doubt it. Your mind is a powerful tool and can play tricks on you a lot, especially when you're in sleep mode but awake at the same time. A weird feeling. Not my story but my brother's. Spoilers, sort of, for A Haunting at Bly Manor for what comes next. So, he had just watched an episode of A Haunting at Bly Manor, and the Lady of the Lake had appeared, taking her route through the house. He had watched the episode at around 3 a.m. He was scared, but he went to sleep on a mattress in the living room. Suddenly he woke up at 5-ish, it was kind of dark, by some noises coming from the main door. He thought that they somehow sounded like knocks on the door. Heartbeat rising, he looked at the door but couldn't understand, as he was half sleepy and half petrified. Somehow tried to ignore this occurrence. Heard something knocking on the door again and also heard someone's steps from outside. He was freaking out. And then he finally thought to look at the door again when he saw beneath the door gap someone standing, casting 2 shadows of their feet through the door. He ran screaming inside his house, thinking it was the Lady of the Lake. After some time gaining courage, he went back to see and investigate. Turns out he had forgotten to lock the door, hearing the wind knocking the door against the wall lightly, saw a cat outside, sounds of steps, and 2 plastic milk packets dropped before the door, making shadows which looked like someone standing. When he told me this story, I nearly pissed myself laughing. Probably more has happened that I've forgotten, but one is when my friend and I were going to sleep. If the stairs up, we slept on the basement floor, were in the top left corner, my bed was by the top right, and they slept on a mattress at the bottom right. It's not really an interesting story, since it was just a sound, but it was scary when it happened. This is more so I'll remember the story. We were just going to sleep, so I turned off the lights. It was in the middle of the night. There was a couch and a lot of pillows that covered it underneath the stairs too. After a few minutes of the room being completely drenched in darkness, we hear a sound. It was from my left, underneath the stairs. Like this growling type of sound, it sounded really dark and really sounded like a growl. So I was like, "Hey, friend's name, was that you?" Because I was hoping I had misheard it and it came from my friend and they were hungry. But they respond, "No, I don't know, was that you?" So I say, "No." Then I freaking shoot my hand up to get the light switch. I legit panicked as soon as I realized that it was neither of us, right as I had said no to. It felt like everything happened between 1 and 10 seconds when I was throwing my hand around. They shouted, "Turn on the light." And after maybe 5 very long seconds I managed to flip the switch. We looked around, first cautiously under the couch and between the pillows, then we combed through the entire room. There was nothing, and nothing else in the house was changed. I had never heard that sound before, and I have never heard it after that, so I don't know what the hell it was. It was scary, though. Maybe people will think it's just the pipes or something, but it doesn't make sense either. I wish I almost could hear the sound again. It really did sound like a deep growl.